Professor Steple is joining us from University of Wollongong, and he's a professor in sensorimeter and neurosciences there, and his research areas are human movement and sport sciences, besides other areas which are being flashed on the slide. He's also a member of Origins of Balanced Deficits and False Research Cluster at University of British Columbia, Vancouver. Over to you, Professor Steple.
So, Dr. Archana Mantri, unfortunately, Professor Paul Steple could not join us for the panel discussion. I request you to proceed ahead.
Sure. Okay, Aishwarya, thank you for the information. So next we are very glad and honored to have Professor Rajiv Ahuja, who is Director IIT, Roper, India, with us. He is a seasoned researcher and is elected Fellow of Royal Society Chemistry, APS Fellow by American Physical Society, USA, besides being recipient of many awards, including Wallmark Prize for 2011 from KVA, that is Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. How do you differ or agree, Professor Ahuja, from our earlier speakers? What is your opinion? What are your specific comments on the question that I just asked? Over to you, Professor
Rajiv. Thank you. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizer to give me this opportunity to come on this platform. Actually, I am also very new to Indian system right now. I only joined 2 months back, IIT Roper. Before that, I was a professor in physics at Uppsala University in Sweden for last 30 years. So I can easily understand this role of online teaching and what we are going through during this pandemic time. Okay, we as a research perspective, and as well as for a teacher perspective, this is a big opportunity also for us. Actually, we have challenges, but we have opportunities. We were talking about this online teaching platform for a long time, but pandemic has pushed us to implement this very effectively. And now you can see that all over the world, this is the only online teaching media is one of the strongest media to teach our young generation students and to collaborate also in terms of the research. Now we can collaborate, now we can take the courses anywhere in the world. So there is no border. And the only thing is when we are talking about interaction with the student, what we have in the physical mode, which is not possible right now in that way. But we are moving forward. And how we take the exam, and it's also one of the issues which was earlier mentioned by our colleague speaker from England about this is like an open book exam. But that also gave the opportunity in that one also that open book exam can give you just only the book knowledge. But when we design the curricula and when we design the property papers examination, and we have to be very innovative. So even though they can even we have an open book exam, but if you have innovative questions and the questions are arranged more in a different manner, right? Like before we do following the books or the curricula. So one thing we have to focus on the interdisciplinary things and freedom to choose the courses. So that will generate a lot of interest among the students who are taking these online teaching courses. And another issue is to how to design the when we are working in an institute like IIT Roper, and where we are giving students not only the theoretical knowledge, but we are also teaching them experimental knowledge also. So how to devise those experiments, which we can show them like an online media. So that is also to be taken a serious attempt, because right now we were not prepared how we take this online courses together with the experiments, what we do in the labs to teach students. That's one of the biggest challenge right now I see in the online teaching platform. And in that sense, I know that many technological institutes all over the world, they are working on it. They are devising those experiments, and those experiments are also available to all over the world. So we are sharing those kind of experiment with other institute, and this is also generating a lot of collaboration between different institutes and different university, not only within India but all over the world. So now we are working like as a whole, as a one family, all together, and we are moving much faster what we have not moved in before for the online teaching learning and online not only just teaching but online experimental research, and creating environment for the student so they can sit at home and they can learn the experimental knowledge also while sitting on in front of their computers. So I think this is a great opportunity for us, and we should have taken this opportunity in a positive manner. And online teaching will be the future. Even we have offline classes, but online will be future, especially if we want to interact or attract a mass of the student. And we should also think in the view also our national education policy, and where we should have a freedom to choose the courses. We have a freedom to choose curricula, and it should be interdisciplinary. With that, I would like to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ahuja. I think more of innovation opportunities are now with the teachers as it is with the students. So you have brought a very, very important point and very, very pertinent, very timely point of designing practicals online, and because that is what is going to be the future, at least in a hybrid or mixed approach, as we call it. I also have another question for you, Professor Ahuja, moving ahead, because we are talking of benchmarking internationally and implementing locally. I know that IIT Roper India has some notable endowment funds to serve local populations. How do you bring best international practices to serve the local communities?
Thank you.
Coming from India, Government of India, but do you and how you involve best international practices to serve the local communities? That's the question.
Thank you for this question. Actually, it's a very challenging question in itself also, because when you have to bring the international part to Indian part, so we have to also think the Indian environment and Indian demography and all surrounding an Indian system also. So there is not a one-to-one translation from internationalization, from international environment to the Indian environment to bring anything. So we have to adopt according to the Indian scenario. And one example is that since we are from Punjab and we are sitting inside Punjab, and we know that Punjab is a food bowl of the country. And another way, we also know that the India's 70% population is living in the countryside. So agriculture is one of the main occupation for this population who are living in the countryside. So we have to bring state-of-the-art technologies in the field of agriculture and the water management, which is very crucial for our local population, especially in Punjab. So our idea is that we have to train this local population with a new initiative, which we call the cyber physical system. So our farmers, our local population, they should get used to this technology, so they can have a much better product in terms of the yield from their field. And we have to bring local, like a food processing industry also in those local places. So we are looking to work close to villages which are close to IIT Roper, and not use them as a starting points. And we want to do that in a big way. And because that's our mandate we got from our government also to serve a local population. So agriculture is one thing, and the water management. In water management, we are talking about the contamination in the water, toxicity in the water, the soil management, and we want to bring a small food processing industry in the countryside. So what we learn, I learned from abroad, and the education is also important part. So our young students and young IIT graduates or young faculty member can adopt those villages, and we can impart the education part, and we want to train them, because if we want them, they should know about this internet and the cyber physical systems. So we have to help them to understand those systems, because nowadays in Indian villages we don't have a problem for internet, and all the infrastructure we have there, and everybody has the mobile phone. So we can connect with them via cyber physical system, via satellite. They can look in their crops, they can manage their crop even sitting at home. They can look at the weather forecast, and they can which kind of crop they have to grown in that particular season, and which can give them more output. And this way we can also other ways also to teach them how to take the waste management. And we have a lot of waste also in the countryside, how to convert them a useful resource. Like we have when we have agriculture farms, we have the stable burning. So how we can change the stable in form of the fertilizer, or if we can use them in a way where we can reduce the environmental damage. So that's also one of the issue what the country is facing also, and we want use our technology made for the rural technology, which will be called the project we call Rural Tech. So in abroad, like in other countries, and like a local commune, which in India we call the local municipal corporation, they work very jointly with the universities, and they design the city for them, that there should be this kind of road, and there should be a road for bicycles also, so we can take the pollution also in the control. So if we want to transfer our knowledge and or the internalization part, so we have a lot of opportunity to transfer those, but we have to adopt to the Indian scenario and Indian environmental, considering the surrounding in India, especially in those kind of local community or those local villages. So that is what I think this could be my answer.
Thank you, Professor Ahuja. In a nutshell, I would like to summarize what you said. I think this was the summary. We are very happy to have Professor Stapley with us, and to introduce him once again, he is Associate Dean International at University of Wolfgang. And the question, Professor Stapley, for you is, as Associate Dean International, what do you think are the most intriguing challenges for the education sector when it comes to globalization and benchmarking?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? So I guess the most intriguing challenge today has been getting me to log in on time. So I apologize for being so late.
Welcome anyway. You have a very, very intriguing question and very challenging question for you now.
It's a very challenging question. And I suppose what the most intriguing challenge at the moment is this situation with COVID that we have. So from a perspective of a professor in Australia, where we value our international students, this has really thrown us into turmoil in Australia. So we depend on our international students for diversity. We depend on them for intellectual input, and being an associate dean international that has an oversight over the international students, and also I'm head of the School of Medicine, and it gives me a unique perspective to see how much we've lost from the presence of our international students. So in terms of challenges to the education sector, I'll be very honest, there's challenges in Australia around financial problems related to the presence of our international students. That's a definite challenge in this sector. But there's also a challenge with the intellectual input and the stimulation that the Australian society gets from our international students. So the very first thing I'd say is that's the biggest challenge, is that globalization of education has suffered greatly from this COVID situation. This is true not just for Australia, but it's true for other countries, US and Canada and the UK. I guess the other major challenge that we've all been faced with is this shift from a very traditional way of delivering education, so face-to-face lectures, face-to-face practical opportunities and tutorials, to what we now try and do, which is what we call a mixed blended model of learning. And the very best example in our faculty of a blended model comes from our nursing degrees. So they're very popular degrees here, and a lot of students come from overseas to study nursing in Australia. And our nursing faculty, our nursing school has gone completely to what we call a flipped classroom. Okay, so nursing are unique because they don't deliver any face-to-face lectures anymore. They do. They put content on the website. They put content on the platform that we use to educate students, and they back that content up with practical and what we call R.I.S.E, which is seeing patients and having clinical situations. So they expect the student to come to these practical situations having read and digested the information. So this is a challenge because it's a challenge especially for Australian students, because they come off from high school and they have assimilated all this information and they think that we're going to do the same thing. Whereas what we've done is we've completely flipped the classroom. It's called a flipped classroom. And then we use what we call blended models of learning. So blended learning essentially is expecting the student to read the content, coming to the practical situation and putting that content into practice within a very real life situation. And the best example is nursing. We do it also in medicine. We do it in our pre-medicine degrees, and we're trying to go to this flipped blended model of learning across the whole of our offerings in medicine. And that throws up a very unique difficulty, a set of difficulties that are extremely unique, because COVID has meant that people can do these very standard ways of learning online, but don't get the practical backup. So we've also had to invent virtual ways of delivering that practical content, interacting with academics, and this has been a massive opportunity. So the second part of your question around benchmarking, I have very distinct opinions on benchmarking. So benchmarking is traditionally done with different types of rankings. So I think the most popular one is the QS ranking. Everybody looks at the QS ranking and they choose their university very often based on the QS ranking. But what I would suggest is people have to be careful about interpreting the QS ranking directly as a sign of the quality of the program. So within the university, there are programs such as chemistry in our faculty or nursing that are very highly ranked, even higher than the QS ranking would suggest. So my advice to international students and students wishing to study across the world is to look very closely at the ranking of the discipline that they're choosing, rather than focusing completely on the ranking of the university. Because very often within a university that's ranked at a certain level, the discipline will be very highly ranked. Okay, and the very last thing I'll say about benchmarking and globalization is, especially at the University of Wollongong, this COVID situation is now making us reflect upon how we view students from international locations. And we have a new Vice Chancellor here, and she's from Johns Hopkins University in the US, where they view students very much as part of a global community. And I'm very enthusiastic about the way that she's brought that idea to the University of Wollongong over the past few months. And she wants us, and we're very much on board with the idea that students are part of a global community. And especially in a town such as Wollongong, it's a small town. It's about 80 kilometers south of Sydney. It's not in a big city. and the local residents and the local community actually benefit a lot from these students. And we now view globalization as the acceptation of global communities. So that's my interpretation of the question. I hope I've answered the question. I'm happy to answer any questions further on in the meeting. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's very exciting. I apologize again for being so late logging on.
Very interesting, very interesting. You brought a very interesting point, Professor Stapley, that we have to create benchmarking practices within the university for a program. And that's very interesting. I found that also focus on the ranking and accreditation of the university, but also create enough healthy competition within the university for the programs, because every program is unique within a university, and we must create our own benchmarking practices, thinking about global practices also. Interesting. And that also gives rise to my next new question, which is going to be a surprise for all of you. But before that, I have a pointed question for Ravneet. Deacon, I know Ravneet has many in-country programs and academic mentorship programs, including one that you run with Chandigarh University, where you work with very many international partners. How do you aggregate and share best practices across partner countries and universities?
So,
Ravneet, over to you.
Thank you, Archana. So at Deakin University, we have a division called Deakin Global Engagement, which actually looks after all international engagement activities of the university. And here we have, a partnerships office which holds all the data and all the models that we work on. We have admissions, which looks after all the applications. We have marketing, which looks after all the marketing. And somewhere joined down the line, all of these work very closely together within the university system to ensure that we learn from each other, and that we are able to share our best practices of what's happening globally at Deakin University. We also have an executive group which is chaired by the Deputy Vice President, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Global Engagement, where we bring in domestic expertise, international expertise, and for example, Deakin has this office in India where I'm sitting right now, which is the Deakin South Asia office, which looks after India and 8 other countries in the region. All of this somewhere down the line works very well together with the university systems. Deakin in India has been quite innovative over the years. This is our 27th year of operation that we are celebrating in India. And our presence has been largely to focus on partnerships with India in India. Our internationalization strategy has always been more around engaging with partners in the platform that works for the local. So pretty much thinking global and working local has been Deakin's strategy. Our engagement in India reinforces a very long-term commitment to strong Indian partnerships, and it also addresses the mutual benefit focus, whether it is from an institution perspective or from a student perspective or from a partnership perspective. Our key learnings and experiences in almost the 3 decades of our work in India really focuses on a couple of things which I think are very important to mention today. The first, I think, is that you need to be very clear on the model of engagement that you start to set out. India is a complex country, and not everything will work here. We believe the 4 Ps that have worked for us basically over the years has been persistence, people, passion, and partnership. Who you work with, like the model that we are working with Chandigarh has been really, really good, because at the end of the day, you have to think about the end user. It has to make sense to the student. You have to think of a differential pricing strategy. You have to think of a model which is engaging and bringing in quality assurance and best practices. And the Indian institution, the recipient, also has to be innovative and has to accept that there is going to be a moderation in the way that traditional degrees have been operating. And we found Chitkara University extremely innovative, extremely engaging, and this new program has done very well in the university. The other thing I think that we must remember is that the 4 pillars of success in any partnership needs to be around, education itself with a focus on employability. It must have research and innovation. It must look at partnership building. It must think about capacity building and thought leadership. And I find that extremely interesting in the partnerships that we have in India. We have about 10 key partnerships in India as we speak. And I think that it is really, really important to bring out the element of success in these partnerships. Every model is different and every focus of the partnership is different. And that is, I think, where the flexibility, the agility, and the ability to work in a different context matters a lot in the way we proceed into our partnerships. So it is about what is the need, what is the model that will work, and how do we make it happen. That's our starting point when we start talking to our partners in any other part of the world as well. We have developed some very successful partnerships in China, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Bangladesh, in Nepal. And the basis for all of this is, I would say, agility, flexibility, and also the focus to deliver a mutually beneficial partnership with the local institution.
Thank you, Ravneet. I'll repeat the 4 P's and add the 5th P, which you forgot, but you mentioned later. The 4 P's that you mentioned were persistent, people, passion, partnership. And the 5th P that you bring in was pricing. Unless you place the pricing well, the education partnership models in India, you said, do not work very well. So with those and the 4 pillars of any successful model: education, employability, research and innovation, and capacity building, all these are very, very important parameters which you brought forth in this panel discussion and would serve as key takeaways for the attendees who are listening to all of you. With those, I have a common question once again for all of you. In fact, all of you just mentioned, and I have been making my notes, and I found that all of you have been saying that as we move from local to global for education systems, we were doing it. Everybody was talking about globalization. And now we have another challenge of moving back again from globalization to localization, because this is where we may find most of our takers for the education system with the pandemic hitting us. So it's kind of a complex matrix that the world has built for ourselves, for itself, particularly in the education system, local to global, and then globalization to localization once again. The question to all of you is, do we need newer and spiral processes in place for benchmarking, or do we continue to learn linearly? I'll repeat the question. Do we need newer and spiral processes because of the complex metrics that we have built around, or we continue to learn linearly for benchmarking, for delivering education, and for learning education, for building education systems? Over to you, Professor Stapley first. We then will move to Professor Ahuja, then to Apala, and then to Ravneet. Each one of you has 2 to 3 minutes to answer, please, because we are going to end this session in 10 minutes. Professor Stapley, over to you.
I definitely think we need newer processes. So something that we've worked very hard on at the University of Wollongong during this year is to to use our offshore sites, to try and benefit from leverage is the right word, sorry, I'm looking for, leverage on our offshore sites. So we have sites in Dubai, Malaysia, Hong Kong, which is used less. But so the site in Malaysia, the site in UOW Dubai, the idea there is to provide students with an opportunity to have bespoke opportunities for working on and offshore. So the model that we're trying to develop is that a student can enroll in a degree in an offshore site, which is benchmarked against the local site there, and to begin their degree in that site, and then decide that a certain semester or a certain period of the year they would come to Wollongong and do a certain number of subjects on the Wollongong campus. So they would benefit from the benchmarking and the global ranking of the institution onshore, but do their bespoke degree between the offshore and the onshore location. So in answer to your question, from local to global and global back again, this would provide an international student with the opportunity to start global, to come local Australia, or if you flip it the other way around, they'll start local to them and come globally to Australia and back again, and swap between the two sites or numerous sites within the context of the same degree. So this is something that we put together over the past year or so. We're hopefully going to roll it out in a few programs in the near future, but it provides students with a lot of flexibility between local and global education.
Thank you, Professor Stapley. Over to you, Apala. What's your answer on, do we need to bring more spiral processes in place for benchmarking, or do we continue to learn? What's your answer on?
I think largely we should learn from experience with experience, especially since the world around us is changing all the time, especially in the current climate. But with regards to your specific point about global to local, or local to global and global to local, I think I would like to mention the Global Challenges Research Funding in the United Kingdom. So this is a pot of money which is really dedicated to partnerships between the United Kingdom and countries in Asia, Africa, and South America, and India is one of them. There is money for it, and the partnership can be defined according to the applicant's needs. And I think this is a great initiative. I'm a member of the strategic group. There is one requirement. The partnership has to be geared towards one of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. So there has to be a clear socio-economic benefit, with benefit for society at large. But quality of education is one of them. And I think this is something that people could take more advantage of, because there is actually funding for it, and you can apply at all levels, at an individual level, at a group level. Presumably there are opportunities for institutions as well. So I've worked quite widely with people all around the world. So in Asia, in the States, South America, and Europe, obviously. And I'm always impressed by the Indian infrastructure in research, how much investment there is in research and partnerships. So, I mean, I have a visiting professorship at IIT Bombay, and I've had projects with other places as well. But I think this is something that could be taken more advantage of. And most British institutions are very keen to build good partnerships with ambitious Indian institutions, young Indian institutions with a vision. So that's something I wanted to point out. And there was also a question of what sort of challenges might you encounter in such a partnership. So something that I have found, so I am a mathematician by training, so I'm quite theoretical, but I have successfully worked with people from physics, chemistry, materials science, and also people from industry. And this is not uncommon in the United Kingdom, this happens. But I often find that interdisciplinarity is a challenge once I step outside the United Kingdom. It's not quite perceived in the same way. And also inclusion of early career researchers, I think, is something which should be encouraged at the start. And this, I think, resonates with what Professor Stapley was saying. So any collaborative project, in my opinion, should include ECRs, early career researchers from the start, an element of interdisciplinarity. And also the models of engagement, at least in my experience, at least for international collaborations, in-person meetings are actually very important, at least to sort of initiate the partnership, to agree on common goals, methodologies and follow-up plans. So given the current pandemic situation, I think there will have to be some creative thought on how to sort of build these new models of engagement, because these in-person meetings are somewhat more challenging now. So those are my essential thoughts, that the benchmarking can really be kept, well, as it is, but they will evolve with time and we will learn with experience. But I think internationalization will play a key role, and there are opportunities there which could be perhaps exploited more aggressively.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Majumdar. Surely, when we move from local to global and global to local, internationalization is here to stay. And that is why we are talking of benchmarking internationally. Over to you, Professor Ahuja, for your thoughts on this question. Professor Ahuja, you are muted, I think. You will have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I say that first, a good example from local to global and global to local is myself, actually. I studied in India. I done my PhD from IIT Roorkee. I stayed 30 years in Sweden and now come back to again to local. So now India is a country. It's not a country, it's a continent. We have a very diverse population, very diverse culture, and we have in-depth, very strong academic institutions. So during this pandemic time, how the Indian institutions are working, it's really remarkable. And we have to go, you ask whether we should go linearly or not. So I think we should go to linearly. We should learn more what's happening right now. And we are learning every day, because every day this pandemic situation is becoming, is taking more and more toll. So we have to update ourselves regularly. So the linear approach is a much better for, at least for the Indian community or Indian continent, or even as a whole, as a world. And the Indian education systems are so strong now, and we have one of the biggest population of the youth. The average, if you say the average age of India is 35 years or below. So we have the young and youth population, and they are ready to work hard. They are keen to ready, and they want to contribute to the society and to India. So in my view, this is a great opportunity as being Indian, being one of the leaders in the information technology. It's a right platform for India right now to show the world what India can do on this front. And right now what we are doing on this front, I think it's remarkable. And being from an IIT institute, and I will say that all the IITs are committed to these goals, and we are committed to serve a local population. We are committed to serve a global population. We are open to interact with the international university, international collaboration. And now, as one of the questions mentioned by our colleague about the funding, right now in India, we don't have a problem with funding. If you have an idea, you can implement. There are a lot of opportunity in India, because I can compare the opportunity with other European country and what India, I think now at this point of juncture, India is a way ahead in terms of the funding. And we have a manpower. We have a population, educated population, and this is the right time. And the investment in the online education, and we should learn the lesson every day, and we should move slowly and linearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ahuja. So you insisted on the on learning linearly, and Professor Appala said learn from experiences. Professor Stapley actually brought in how we can create international best practices within the university, apart from other best practices for the university, amongst very many international institutes that you compete with. What is your opinion, Mr. Avneet, on learning spirally or learning linearly? What's your opinion?
I think, Archana, it's going to be a combination of the two, because I think the world that we are moving in is very different. The borders are there, but the borders in education are diminishing because we are trying to operate online. And there is a better side of digital intervention into education and digital technology intervention into education at such a fast pace. What we wanted to do before, we were not able to do because of the constraints. Now, with acceptance of digital technology and acceptance about things online, we are able to do it at a faster pace. I can give you our own example at Deakin University. We've been here for a very long time, trying to set up collaborative partnerships. But always, the online mode was never the preferred mode. And the Indian education policy had not been implemented. So it was very difficult to work with Indian institutions. But today, when we reflect back on that, in the last 12 months, we have been able to establish 4 very strong partnerships in a model that actually works for the student and for the institutions. So my view to this is that there is a lot of learning that has happened, and we need to work together on some commonality about, what are the best practices? How do we ensure quality and assurance for all institutions that want to work together? It's not about who's better than who. It's just that we have systems in place, we have procedures in place, which are very tight, based on our institutional practices, also on country practices. Like from Australia, if you have to operate internationally, you have to meet the TEXA requirements. So, and that is not easy to do. I think systems will need to marry each other in a much better sort of acceptable platform. We will need to understand each other better, and we will need to ensure that and recognize that each system has its own merit. And somewhere down the line, it has to create flexibility for acceptance, because the students can really benefit from this. If a student sitting in India can study, say, from Deakin University in a hybrid model, and then maybe down the line choose to spend a couple of months in Australia if required, it's a win-win for the student. Or vice versa. If the student who is from Australia wants to experience India and can do it virtually, and then maybe spend some time in India, I think that is the future. So blended hybrid systems put together in yet a very structured manner is going to be the future, in my view, with pricing, like I said before, revisiting the pricing strategy, revisiting the accreditation process, and also thinking about what can you bring out which is the best from each institution. For example, the partnership will no longer need to be, I am better than you model. It needs to be, you are good in what you do, I'm good in this, let's get together and do something which is unique and different. So I personally believe that, what Paul said earlier, that at the end of the day, it is about global and local, in every context and in every platform. What you can bring with you is global experiences, global learning, global thought leadership. What you need to act, it will have to be local, will have to be relevant, and will have to be accepted by the community, and also must impact to the community we operate in, which is where I bring out the element of upskilling, reskilling. India needs that. Look at the goals that we have for skilling our youth. Somebody said earlier that we have a very strong, large Indian young population. That is true. How do we maximize that population to the best use of India? And that is by skilling the population. What can Australia bring in, from its best practices, whether it's our TAFE institutional practices, which is the skilling system, or it is our higher education practices, which we have evolved over the years. How can we bring that for the best use between the two countries? And similarly, I think, what was mentioned earlier as well is it will need to have standardizations and accreditations in place so that we are able to maintain the quality and assurance. Thanks.
Thank you, Ravneet. What a panel, what a discussion, what an intellect we have been able to gather on the screen of this panel discussion on benchmark internationally, implement locally. Each one of the panelists, whether they have been drawn from UK, Australia, India, each one of us insisted that India is a great place to work, to be, and to work with. And that's what is the key takeaway. Given the challenges, given the big population, we have turned the tides in our favor sitting in India and with our international partners drawn across the globe. It's not about the two universities who are hosting this conference, but each one of us knows that all the universities collectively, the education system as a whole, with the international benchmark practices brought in by QS, we have been able to shine internationally. And that's what is the key takeaway. Build local context, curate the problem under the context of international best practices, under the context of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, bring socio-economic aspects while you are curating the problem, bring out new models of engagement, and then implement it locally. That's what is the key takeaway. Each one of you has been great speakers. Each one of you brought very important, unique aspects of benchmarking internationally and implement locally. Thank you very much. Thank you, QS. Thank you, Chitkara University. Thank you, Chandigarh University. Thank you, R.I.S.E. Thank you very much. Have a good day, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aishwarya.
So apologies for the audio connection. I thank Dr. Archana for conducting an incredible panel discussion. And I also thank all the panelists for joining us today and sharing their valuable insights with us. I move on to our next keynote speaker, Professor Paul Inman. He's the Pro Vice Chancellor at University of Reading, and he leads the global engagement and international student recruitment. He's also the member of the university's executive board. Today, he'll share some of interesting insights on building a world-class university, the case study of University of Reading. Welcome, Professor Paul.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to do that thing where I have to try and share my screen, which will be good. If it works, that'll be even better. Just to say, if it doesn't work, I've actually sent a copy of the slides that could be run from that end, but here we go. Yeah, I think you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to do it from that end. I'm afraid I'm having trouble. So, if that's okay, could you do that? Yeah, lovely. Can you just start that? Thank you. Well, I hope you can see that. So, I'll just quickly change. We're all starting to get used to new ways of doing things. If you could run that slideshow, that'd be brilliant. That's the first slide. And if I just tell you each time to change, wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for inviting me. I've now been, I've worked in the university sector for about 25 years and worked on 3 senior management teams at UK universities. And currently I'm the Pro Vice Chancellor for International University of Reading. And I've worked directly to 5 Vice Chancellors. And like a lot of university Vice Chancellors these days in the UK, we've had other lives as well. And I was a filmmaker and a television producer for around about 20 years. So I've worked all across the globe, but I do have a special interest in India and South Asia, and have worked there on and off for about 25 years. So the thing around being a world-class university, I should start with some sort of definition. These days, everybody wants to be a world-class university, and for better or worse, we now live with the world of rankings. You either love them or you loathe them, but they're there and they're there to stay. And QS being very important in the spread of that. And we know, I wanted to say, because I just caught the end of the last conversation, that wonderful panel, is that obviously it is a challenge for India. And I think we have to acknowledge that. In terms of those world-class university rankings, it's really only been 3 universities in India, of all the universities in India, who have been in the regularly featured since 2017 in the top world rankings. So as in most countries, there's a diversity of universities. So not everybody sees the world through the IIIT, the IIT. There are many different universities in India, just as there are in the UK. Anyway, so I'll take as my starting point that world class is a good thing, something to aspire to. But I did want to say that it's not necessarily at the expense of being excellent closer to home. I think the really good universities in the world recognise that excellence at home can also be on the world stage. So acting local and acting global is very important to recognise. Because I also noticed that in the conference, there's a debate after this presentation looking at whether India needs to engage sort of globally, because there's so much diversity in India already. I will take part in that, hopefully. Anyway, I live in Oxford in the UK, and I can see this excellence being played out on the local and the global stage pretty much on a daily basis. So this presentation, I'd like to just really posit 10 steps to heaven, or 10 steps towards a world-class university. Could I have the first slide, please? So be excellent. Every university puts the rankings prominently if they're proud of them. So the university I work at is in the top 20% of all universities worldwide. We all find different ways of saying how excellent we are, but we all do it. University of Reading is a research-intensive university, so top 30 in the UK, top 20% in the world. And I think that what you can see in the university sector globally is that university strategies are tending to be more instrumental, driven by the rankings. I suppose today what I wanted to make it clear that I don't view this as a sensible way to pursue excellence. The rankings should provide you with the proof of your standing, and that your community can be proud of that, and that your potential new staff and new students can see your quality. So you can, by all means, examine the way that the university league tables, use the data. But I'm always a bit hesitant about encouraging universities to game the data. Just present your data in an optimal way. So here are the things I think make up. Some of these things you have very little control over. Some of these things you have a lot of control over. So next slide, please. Now, this is a really interesting one. Every university has a history. So University of Reading has a really good history. We're just about to come up to one of our anniversaries, our 100th year as a university in 2026. But actually, the history of the university is really important in talking about your world-class standing. And I'll explain. Ultimately, we're going to tell stories about our university, and multiple narratives I reckon, are more easily understood and acknowledged than some of the data. So the world-class university has a history. And so the University of Reading, the interesting thing is that it started off life as a university, an extension college of the University of Oxford. So this notion of partnership, which I've heard a few times this morning, you're as good as the partners that you keep or the company that you keep. And not surprising, University of Reading makes quite a lot of the fact that it did start life as a part of what is essentially the #1 university in the world. We are literally just down the road from that university, about 30 miles away. So that's a history. Now, I think world-class universities need to match a historical story or a number of stories with a modern outlook. And so, again, from the university that I'm working in, it's really important for us to, so in 2018, we opened a major science park with around about £40 million worth of investment. So it's this matching of a history and a future, an outlook, a modern outlook. Along the way in that historical narrative, universities change. So lots of universities in the UK started off as schools of art, for instance, or a mixture of schools of art and school of science and schools of commerce. And during the 20th century, they become fully fledged universities. So this historical narrative, picking up good things along the way. So for University of Reading in 2008, we pick up essentially one of the best business schools in the world, top 50 business school, Henley Business School, again, geographically just down the road. So this will lead me on to my next point in a minute. But the modern outlook bit is that the science park that we've opened has now, because of the pandemic, I mean, this is some things you can't control. It was a science park aimed at science companies. Moderate success. Then the pandemic hits and everybody wants to consume film and television. And suddenly we find that we're sat in a part of the world or a part of the UK that's attracting potential clients like Netflix and Disney. And suddenly we're in the position of being able to actually, our clients are now film and television studios, including a number of Indian film companies about the importance of location. It's something they can't really control. You are where you are. Every university is shaped by its physical location. And I honestly think it's one of the location is one of the most important marketing angles a university has. If you look at university prospectuses, they are littered with references and photographs and of their location. So the University of Reading has, it's a great location because it has a green, one of the leading green campuses in the UK, but it's only 30 minutes from London. Of course, if you're living in India and working in India, everything, the UK is so small in comparison with India that I would argue that everything is close to London. In fact, most universities stay there within easy distance of London. Reading is literally just outside the M25, the circular road that goes around London. So being close to a political centre, a capital, obviously is really important in the same way that universities close to Delhi have an importance because of where they are. They're close to where where decisions are made. So Reading is also the capital of the UK's Silicon Valley. You see clusters of IT companies littered across the Thames Valley corridor. And many global businesses also have their home there, like Microsoft, PwC, Jacobs. But I think actually I always say for young people, the brand awareness of Reading is people know Reading more for the fact that we host the Reading Festival, where hundreds of thousands of music lovers converge on the town to revel in one of the world's largest music festivals. Again, some of those things happen to you. You haven't so much control. Next slide, please. Reading is a research-intensive university. I'm not going to argue that all world-class universities need to be research active, but if you look at the lists, you won't be surprised that research features at the heart of most world-class universities. So these days, research excellence is marked out, as we know, by impact and international citation. So it's important for universities to be very good at something. I'd argue they need to be need to be excellent at more than one thing. They're universities, and the definition of a university, a number of points of excellence. So at University of Reading, from the slide you can see, 98% of our research is internationally recognised. We're in the top 100 universities in the world and the top 10 universities for physical sciences. So our particular thing that we're excellent at, and what we drive, because we know it drives our world-classness, is that we're particularly known for our strengths in meteorology and climate science. Now, again, the fact that there is a climate crisis, nobody wants to say that's a really good thing because it helps us because it's what we're really good at. Of course not. But actually, again, happenstance in some ways. We just happen to be very good at something which everybody wants to be good at. So our Department of Meteorology, for instance, is consistently one of the highest ranking in the world. And it's kind of interesting then how that leads on to other things, which I'll talk about later. But essentially, the partnership work that we can do across the world, it means we can attract partnerships of research excellence in other countries where people, various countries want to be world leading in meteorology and climate science. So at Reading at the moment, we have around about 1,000 research professors who are working across 4 research themes. And these are aimed at, like lots of universities now, we're seeing this movement towards impact, aiming to solve some of the biggest problems facing the world today. The 4 themes we use are agriculture, food and health, environment, heritage and creativity. We have another one around prosperity and resilience as well, which I'll come on to. But we work across continents and across disciplines, bringing together multidisciplinary teams. And I think this is, again, is marking out world class. It's about the fact that the move towards multidisciplinary working has been so important for us. Next slide, please. I wanted to draw attention to one country. And obviously, where I am today, I wanted to talk about India. The first thing I did when I joined the university last year in the middle of the pandemic was brought together all of the researchers who are working in India for a good reason. Sometimes universities are spread out with activity. One university researcher, a professor who's working in one state in India, doesn't realize that 5 other of his colleagues across the universities in different departments and schools are also there. So I wanted to try and bring together that and just look at the type of work that we're doing. So I won't spend too much time, but I just wanted to let you know that University of Reading has around about 40 research teams currently working on live research projects across your country. So I wanted to tell the story of that global footprint, how partnerships work across the globe, and also the sheer diversity of work within a world-class university. We have researchers, for instance, working on world-class research on venomous snake bites. That's been running for a number of years now. We've got another one working on zero-budget natural farming in Andhra Pradesh. Another one looking, one of my particular favourites, which is the background to the slide, about boosting bees for bigger, better crops in Tamil Nadu. Where an ecologist is working with colleagues, looking at the science to optimize pollination services by bees and other insects. We've also got a number of projects bringing electricity and cleaner air to rural homes. And of course, any presentation that anybody from the UK does has to mention colonialism and that mixed history that we have between the UK and India. Not surprisingly, we have researchers working on some of the history of colonialism within our history department. Next slide, please. every university talks about, and every world-class university talks about its student numbers. There's no magic number in terms of the size of a world-class university. Some of those universities are very small, some of them very large. They come in all shapes and sizes. University of Reading, for instance, has 22,000 students. But I think what a world-class university needs to look at is the balance of undergraduate and postgraduate. It's not surprising that the world-class university will have a larger postgraduate, for instance, research community, PGR students. So University of Reading has cultivated one of the largest postgraduate research communities in the UK, has around about 1,700 PhD students at any one time. And that's because of the sheer volume of high impact, high quality research that's going on within the walls of the city of the university. Now, the world-class university is only as good as the members of its community, remember, so its staff and its students. And success attracts quality, so this virtuous circle. The university, the good or world-class university, you must remember, also attracts the interest of competitor universities. So staff retention can become an issue in a university. So I always say with world-class universities, you need to keep an eye on the members of your community. Look at the contracts that you offer staff. What are you offering to remain competitive? Look at and it is contractual these days, the contract, the study contracts you have with your students. Make them competitive. Keep people alive to how good you are and the experience of those students while they're there. Next slide, please. We always want to talk about teaching excellence, and one of the things you've really noticed in world-class universities is that they are continually investing, even in difficult times. And let's face it, the pandemic has hit the bottom line, the budgets of every university in the world. It's been a very, very difficult year, if not 2 years, because there'll be fallout from the pandemic. Continually investing, though, it's not an option. One has to do it. Many universities in the UK were gifted accommodation, gifted buildings by their local authorities in the 1960s and 1970s. These universities have now got accommodation, well, over the last 20 years that was too old, was looking dilapidated. They needed to rebuild, and that's been a constant in the last 3 universities I've been at. I mean, I've been in total in those universities in senior teams for about 15 years. I've watched, literally billions of pounds being spent on estate across those universities. So at University of Reading, we've spent around about 200 million capital investment in our campus in the last 5 years, and that's an ongoing investment. The other thing about teaching excellence is that student satisfaction is measured studiously these days. But I think a world-class university shouldn't slavishly aim for student happiness. It needs to be a byproduct of its approach. So the established, highly successful research institution with a global reach has to have teaching, learning, and student experience at its heart. So this notion of working with your students and your staff, co-creating knowledge, this is all output of a world-class university. You're looking more and more these days for the world-class university talks about its students being global citizens. And you'll see that they put all kinds of programs which are co-curricular to develop not just the core subject skills and the mastery of a particular discipline, but skills in research and inquiry, personal effectiveness, self-awareness, and global engagement. Again, growing or building global citizens. At a postgraduate level, the University of Reading also provides outstanding support for career-focused students, and this is more and more what we're seeing, especially in students from India, actually. Students from India, we know, they view the value of the course they're going to go and do at postgraduate as being having employability at heart. It must be a passport, a ticket to better employment. And every university in the world needs to acknowledge that employability is everything, I would say, at the moment. University of Reading's graduate school, for instance, is ranked 2nd in the UK and 8th in the world. So next slide, please. University of Reading is in the top 100 for international outlook. This is one of the things, or one of the USPs I need to keep an eye on in my day job at University of Reading. I mean, I don't think you can be world class without an international outlook. I mean, I don't think that's negotiable. So the University of Reading needs to be a truly global community. So I look at that, and that's measured in different ways. It's not just about the number of international students. I think that's a mistake for a university to make. University of Reading has about 5,000 international students from around 160 countries. But also look at the staff. Over a third of our staff are from outside the UK. We also provide dedicated support for international students through an international advisory team. More and more we're focused on those students from outside the UK. But I think it's more than that. The world-class university also has a physical presence in other parts of the world. And this has played out in the pandemic. It's been very good to have a place somewhere else in the world for all sorts of reasons. University of Reading has campuses in Malaysia and South Africa. Also has a very established academy in Nanjing in China with Nanjing University of Information Science and Technology, which is China's premier university in meteorology. Remember, I was saying that meteorology is one of our, we're one of the best in the world for that, and that allows us to have world-class partnerships in China and other countries. So there's all sorts of reasons to have an international outlook, and there are all different ways it's measured. But like I say, that's non-negotiable, and that is one of the things we work very hard on. Because people are global citizens, and admittedly the world has closed down, borders have closed down during the pandemic, but whatever that new normal looks like, I can guarantee it will still involve people working globally across the world, maybe in different ways. Maybe transnational education will be much more important for world-class universities, but we can guarantee that international citation of research will continue to equal world-class. Next slide, please. One of the things that the world-class university understands is that it needs to be engaged with its alumni. So at Reading, 95% of all graduates are in work. That's important. Employability is important. But that connection in with your alumni and your graduates later, that's another virtuous circle. And the world-class university recognises that. You see that. They have the understanding that will work in terms of the virtuous circle. It helps with future student recruitment. I've done various things where I re-engage with alumni from our university in India. So it helps us connect with our future student recruitment. It also helps us to mentor our current students by connecting in with alumni as mentors, but also in the development office. It allows us to add significantly to our endowment funds for investment, because all of us know, we've been to a university, that we reconnect with our university. We're proud of where we came from. And for a lot of people, that involves them donating in a philanthropic way to their alma mater years later. And the American universities have understood that, and other universities around the world are catching on to that. So next slide, please. I'm coming towards the end of my presentation, so I just wanted to say a word about strategy, because strategy in universities, I've had a private sector career in film and television, as I mentioned, and it's kind of interesting the way I look at strategy. I think that quite often strategy documents are left on, they're drawn up by senior teams, and then nobody really is aware of what the strategy of the university is. It's certainly not owned by the university community. So I think a world-class university gets this right. They present themselves as communities galvanized around a shared set of ideals. And these set of ideals or guiding principles, they guide and prioritize the decisions that the university makes. So the strategy needs to be visible, it needs to be uncomplicated, and it needs to be owned by your university community, the students, the staff, the alumni, and the external stakeholders that you're working with. So it allows us all to act together using collective skills and diversity to deliver a better world through the transformational power and the quality of our education and our research, and that is one of the taglines that we use at Reading. I think our distinctiveness as a university is about how we can deliver on that transformational promise in the strategy. And you'll see that the 4 pillars of our strategy are community, excellence, sustainability, and being an engaged university. So last slide, I think. Kevin, thank you. So to conclude, a world-class university has a hook, being good for the planet. And I think what I've noticed now with the University of Reading as a world-class university is we become to focus more and more on our environment sustainability, all that side of what we've done. And that last slide showed you our climate stripes, which we've gifted to the world. And it's a really good kind of visual representation of what climate change is doing to the world. And you can look at those climate stripes online. You can search them on Google, and it's just climate stripes Reading. And you can see for India, how during the 20th century and 21st century, climate change is affecting your country. So to conclude, having a hook, one thing to focus on is a good thing for a world-class university. But essentially, world-class universities are excellent at a number of things, and they continue to do that. And it's a sustainable excellence. It's no good world-class universities don't dive up and down the league tables. Those universities that game the data dive up and down. They yo-yo. The world-class university presents a much more stable growth, stable improvement. And that's probably all I need to say for now. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about something I feel is very close to my heart, and I hope I didn't overrun too much. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Professor Paul, for sharing some amazing insights on the pathway to creation of world-class universities with us. So it is time to proceed with our big higher education debate on the topic, India is diverse enough to not require foreign faculty and students. I invite Dr. Ashwin Fernandez to moderate the debate and introduce the speakers for and against the motion. Over to you, Ashwin.
Thank you so much, Aishwarya, and very good afternoon. I've been listening to all the wonderful presentations and discussions, and I think it's an apt time now to get into our big higher education debate, or the big HE debate, on a very important topic, which is India is diverse enough to not require international faculty and students. Now, this is an academic debate, so I don't think it necessarily represents the views of all the panelists, but we are grateful that they've all agreed to be for and against the motion for this academic discussion. And before we start this, I would like to present the poll which we have just done. Now, definitely, one of the key highlights that has come through Professor Paul's presentation is a key element of being a world-class institution is internationalization, right? But at the same time, it has showcased the amazing partnerships the institution, University of Reading, has with India. So the debate today is, and coming from a ranking agency, it's great to have this discussion with everyone here and see what are the people thinking. So if you're finding the link in your description or the chat box, or if you're on our platform, which is the virtual platform, please click on that link and tell us, what do you think? Do you think India is diverse enough so we don't require international faculty and students? One of the arguments is that there is a lot of foreign reserve, or the money from the country which is going out, and it was found that in the last year before COVID, the amount that went out was equal to the budget of the state of Kerala. So there is a massive outflow of foreign reserve going out. But does that mean that we don't have the right institutions in India to cater to them, or we should focus on internationalization? We should try to get students coming from outside to come inside the country. So what is that it is about India, and what do our panelists have to think? So let's put up quickly I request my colleagues to please put up the poll presentation to showcase what do our audience think. So we almost have a 50-50, and I have over 241 votes didn't come in. So the audience is divided on this. So of 50% of our audience here today, almost 243 of them, half of them agree that India is diverse enough to not require international faculty and students, and the other 50%, which is I think an amazing number because I can't see a sway here. The other 50% disagrees. So now, as I introduce my panelists, it would be the job of the panelists to sway these results and tell you why, what they believe as an academic argument here, why they believe this is true or this is not true, and convince you to change your mind into having either a sway towards agree or towards disagree. So with that, let me start introducing the panelists. I have Professor R.S. Bawa, who's the Pro-Chancellor at Chandigarh University. Welcome, sir. Wonderful. Speaking for the motion. As I said, it might not necessarily be the opinion of Professor Bawa or the panelists, but they have agreed to do this for the sake of an academic debate. I also have Mr. Thothatri Raman, who's the ranking and accreditation expert and chairman at SEAA Trust. Welcome, Mr. Raman, who's also speaking for the motion. I have against the motion Mr. Ravi Lochan Singh, who's the president of the Association of Australian Education Representatives in India, who's speaking against the motion. Welcome, Mr. Singh. And I have Mr. Muhammad Furqan Warsi, who's a director at EY. So welcome, Mr. Warsi. Now, how does it go? You have already seen it. I would like my colleagues to flash the results one more time because I think there's a bit of a sway there. So 49% of our audience believes that India is diverse enough to not require international faculty and students, and 51 disagree. So as we go through all the four of you, two of you are for this and against this, I want you to convince our audience today on either you agree or disagree, and have them change their mind so you can sway the results. So we'll give 5 minutes first to Professor Bawa, who will be speaking for the motion. We'll then go against the motion to Mr. Ravi Lochan Singh, and then we'll come back to Mr. Raman, who'll speak for the motion, and then back to Mr. Warsi, who'll speak against the motion, and then I'll be asking some questions. So each of you all, I would like to request you to speak for not more than 5 minutes. Make your points crisp and clear on why this you're speaking for and against the motion, and then I will ask you probably some questions, and we'll then do a concluding debate. So first, Professor R.S. Bawa, over to you to make your statement on for the motion.
Thank you, Dr. Ashin. Well, I think the question is not only the diversity. I think the basic question is, why do we need foreign faculty? I'll talk about the faculty first. Why do we need foreign faculty? And should there be mandatory requirement of foreign faculty in the universities and colleges? Well, I'm against the motion because I believe we have to first understand why we need foreign faculty. To my mind, there are 4 or 5 reasons why we can say that foreign faculty is required. Number one is diversity, of course, that you have put in the caption itself, that we need more diverse, because universities, they must have a universal character. And therefore, we must have presence of the faculty from all the parts of the world. The second, perhaps, is that we need to share pedagogies and different ways of conveying or delivering to the students what we are doing. And maybe different countries are doing differently, different teachers are doing differently. So maybe that can be good for the students. The third is to bring in some more intellect. Maybe we can have some good universities, good people sitting at different parts of the world, because intellect is no person's or no country's property. So it is spread all over the world. This is how the God does it. And the fourth, of course, the equally important is that we should bring in some quality researchers. So in some areas where we think we need some exposed people, those who have done outstanding work. Now, my take on the first one is diversity. Diversity, I think, apart from maybe US and China, No country is as diverse. They don't have so many states, so many cultures, so many languages, 22 languages as per our schedule in the constitution. And also, if we look at the states, the cultures, and not only languages, their all kind of approach to life is different. So if we bring in all the 28 states, all the 8 UTs, then I think you bring in a cultural kind of mix, which is unique in itself, which most of the European countries and most of the smaller countries can't boast of. They have similar kind of culture. They are smaller countries. So this is one. The second is pedagogy. Well, I think in today's world, and the way India is growing, and I feel very proud of this fact that we have almost all the inputs and all the techniques, all the pedagogies which are available anywhere in the world. They are being applied by some outstanding universities of this country. I wouldn't say every university is following that, but I think many universities have that. The third one is intellect. Well, again, I would say that leaving aside a few areas, we are providing intellect to the whole world. In fact, it is the other way around. You will see if you look at the contribution of Indians in both sides. If you talk about the CEOs and chairpersons and all, so I think you'll see Indians. Not only that, if you look at NASA, it is a common knowledge that more than 50% of engineers working there are of Indian origin. They have studied in IITs and all those kind of things. So intellect as such, and I mean, saying that only we need outside intellect only, and that too on a mandatory pattern, I think I don't agree with that. And the fourth one is research. Now, on the research front also, my take is that Indians are absolutely brilliant and top of the world in abstract sciences. You look at theoretical physics, you look at mathematics, you look at statistics, you have all Indians everywhere, and people from the East, in particular India. The only thing we are lacking is technology. Now, bringing in foreign faculty, I'm talking about the faculty first. Foreign faculty, what it costs to us. Rightly so, when they are in a different country, and if they are really good teachers and they are established there, they are in senior position, they are getting high salaries, and when you compare with India, it's not affordable for most of the institutions. And conversion factor, again, creates problem. So when anybody you invite from outside, they'll start converting that currency, maybe US dollar or maybe euro, maybe pound, into Indian, which is untrue also, because if you compare with PPP, then I think no currency in the world is more than 10 times Indian rupee. So there are so many factors. And you know what is most important? In bringing in, say you put mandatory 20%, 25%, 15%, in bringing that faculty, we shall be sacrificing very, very scarce resource, the funding that an institution has, which they can use for creating research infrastructure. To my mind, what is lacking in India is research infrastructure. You look at we just heard University of Reading. I had an opportunity to visit that. I have opportunity to visiting about 190 universities across the globe, across about 50 countries. One thing which we are lacking is technology. One thing which we are lacking is research infrastructure, not the researchers. Let me tell you, we have the best researchers in the world. So bringing in mandatory faculty is not required. Now, I'll tell you what is the model. The model is internationalization at home. Chandigarh University has tried this. What we do, we have more than 300 tie-ups with the whole world. We bring in faculty from prominent universities to teach our students, more than 200 visiting faculty. In fact, last year there were more than 300 because it was online. So a lot of people could afford to teach our students online. And then we also organized an annual feature faculty development program, international faculty development program. And I'm very happy to share this year we're inviting more than 100 speakers from almost 38 countries, which will be sharing their knowledge, new technology, new research with our faculty. So it is, to my mind, especially in the light of availability of technology, which most of the universities, which are worth the name, I think bringing in mandatory, I'm only against the word mandatory. Mandatory bringing in foreign faculty is absolutely not necessary. You can have tie-ups. I am not against that. We should not learn from anybody or we should not share our knowledge. So the concept should be knowledge sharing through partnerships and having some kind of visiting arrangement, not only one way, the second way. And Another underlying factor I would like to point out is that it is very difficult to bring in those brilliant scientists or researchers, those who are working in those labs. We cannot create those kind of labs here. If you can create those labs, then you don't need those people. Then our own scientists can work and do that kind of research wonderfully well. As far as students are concerned, again, bringing in students is absolutely a separate issue. We create in India the kind of conditions, the kind of work culture, the kind of, I would say, infrastructure that the students from developing countries should run to India. I believe that India should be made the most attractive learning place for the whole world. But as far as the faculty is concerned, I do believe that there is absolutely not required. Bringing in students is for a different reason. That is, you create capabilities in yourself so that the students feel attracted. And same way, if the faculty feels attracted, especially from the developing world, let them come, but not at the cost of our own research, at the cost of our own infrastructure, and at the cost of the health, within quotes, health of our own system, and providing the kind of facilities which our faculty deserves to make India not only attractive for the developing world, but to make India a real education guru. I think we need to invest within India instead of wasting our very, very precious resources on bringing in mandatory faculty. Thank you so much. And I'll conclude by saying that your students, your teachers, they are there in India. They are as brilliant as anybody else. In the morning, Chitkara University, they were saying they have filed around 800 patents. We have more than 1,000 patents. And in a single year, we were adjudged as the best patent filing university in the country with 346 patents in a single year. And industry tie-ups and all those kind of things. I think it's possible. It's possible. India can do it itself. Let's invest. Let us create research facilities within India. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Bawa. And I think that's a valid point. You made some really valid points. We have diversity. We have the intellect. Indians are ruling the world. But what we're lacking is the infrastructure. So, but you made also a point that we don't require international faculty, but we should focus on international students. And that's probably will get us some source of foreign reserve back in the country. Now, you have made those points. And I would like to go to Mr. Ravi Lochan Singh to speak against the motion. He's the president of the Association of Australian Education Representatives in India. So, Mr. Singh, can you please, you have 5 minutes to speak against the motion on India is diverse enough to not require international faculty and students. So we want to see what are your views, and would you like to tackle some of those statements which Dr. Bawa has mentioned?
Thank you, Ashwin, or should I say Dr. Ashwin. And also, I did listen to Dr. Bawa fairly carefully. I don't want to really rebut him, but I thought there were fallacies in his argument because he was counting the achievements of various Indians or various foreigners of Indian origin who had done well right up from NASA or the various work around the world. In my way of looking at your topic, they would qualify as foreign faculty by itself. They would be foreigners as long as they could be of Indian origin, but they would be foreigners. So you were in some ways putting out an argument in favor of having foreign faculties, even when you were counting the achievements of various foreigners of Indian origin who had done well around the world. Anyway, getting on to my part of the argument, well, my profile will indicate that I'm not an academic, but having worked with universities from around the world for last 30 years and having been educated at some of the finest institutions in India and overseas, I'm always concerned noticing how the finest Indian institutions outside the IITs don't even get a mention in academic discussions internationally. This has something to do with the world ranking of Indian universities. Interacting with academics at foreign universities, I notice how they are engaging with international universities, especially the Chinese universities, and how they have joint research and teaching assignments with them. What concerns me is that very few of them have considered similar work with Indian universities. It is possible that Indian universities have not yet offered such opportunities. I do take Dr. Bawa's point regarding salaries, and I'll certainly talk about that too when I go further into my argument. In any well-regarded university around the world, there are numerous academics of Indian origin with their first degree from an Indian university and having earned their PhD overseas. These are foreign faculties in my definition, and they have Indian understanding or Indian expertise at the same time. And my argument is a case for them. The benefits of an Indian university by including foreign faculties are numerous. The way the world ranking system works, the number of international faculties and international students are assigned weight. And I personally believe that this is one of the things that has kept some of our leading universities from getting ranked amongst the top 500 in the world. My company recruits international students for large number of institutions around the world, and this includes about 30 universities which figure consistently in the top 200. Thus, a world ranking is also an important draw to attract international students. I think there was an argument being made by Ashwin that Indian students are traveling overseas and thus large foreign exchange is being spent on their education. Or there is it's kind of we could probably retain that money if we had institutions of that level. And I would like to add, a lot of students are attracted by the ranking of universities. And for that to happen, possibly we do need to be a little bit more international than what we are currently. Yes, we have talked about international students, and possibly that's not part of the debate, but because that was mentioned, we should not only rest assured by having students from our neighboring countries into our Indian institutions and count them as foreign students. If we are truly global, we will be able to attract students from around the world, especially the children of the NRIs. Inclusion of foreign faculties lifts the level of joint research and then over a period of time enhances the academic work that is coming out of the universities. It is something that even the Indian academics at the universities desire. Even the best teaching universities have to have high quality research and publications, and this gets a boost with inclusion of foreign faculties. My time is short, and so in the closing part of my argument, I also want to point out, especially because it has been raised, that it's not really going to be very easy attracting foreign faculties, especially good quality foreign faculties to be working in Indian universities. And I accept that part. Established in their careers overseas with attractive international salaries that may even be 8 times more, and with family responsibilities, they are not likely to travel to work and live in India for a fairly long duration. However, the most realistic possibility is academics of Indian origin, even though they are foreigners and who have family reasons to be attracted back to India for a few years, if not forever. From my interactions with many in this category, I find that they have an urge to give back something to India and have a desire to spend a few years near their aging parents in India. Thus, being able to accept even lower salaries, provided their work and their research is exciting them and it is in the area that they want to contribute. I argue that Indian universities should make a determined effort to offer them an opportunity. I thank Chitkara and Chandigarh universities for this opportunity given to me. I'm currently stranded outside of India due to the pandemic. On my last visit to Chandigarh, I had visited Chitkara, was very impressed with the facilities that you have there. And I have also hosted a senior member of the Chandigarh universities on a travel to various universities. I compliment QS for organizing this event. The organizers may not know, but about 9 years ago, I have worked fairly closely with QS when we trialed student recruitment in India, and we had launched QS Global Reach at that point of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. You have made some valid arguments, and I think you have responded to Dr. Bawa there on international faculty that is of Indian origin, which is a valid point. So we do require, and you have changed the definition of foreign faculty to faculty of Indian origin who are abroad, who can be brought back, and also the children of NRIs to get international students. So you have kind of taken the debate to another level. I would now like to go back to for the motion and ask Mr. Totatri Raman, who's the chairman of SEAA Trust, to make his statements for the motion and tell us why doesn't, and you can probably respond to Mr. Singh and also make your points on what do you think, why do you think India is diverse enough that we don't require international faculty and students. So over to you, Mr. Raman. You're muted, Mr. Raman. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Ashwin, for this opportunity. And I was very keenly listening to my colleagues previously who were speaking here. And I'm quite fascinated by the way we are understanding this topic. This is really interesting because kind of is slightly smug. You would say that we are diverse enough that we don't really require faculty and the students. I would take it in a slightly different way. We are where we are, okay? And we would call ourselves as diverse at this point of time, fair enough. And at the way we are at this point of time, I really don't think, we need to really get expensive faculty at this point of time, or the kind of students that we hope will be paying that kind of fee that we might charge differentially to them. No. Frankly speaking, let me tell you, it's all about quality. If you are of a very, very high quality, as both the hosts, the Chandigarh University as well as Chitkara University has proved that if you have high quality, then obviously you'll attract foreign faculty as well as foreign students. But both these group of people would come in provided there are other structural issues which we will sort out. We have to sort out. This is my main take on this. When we started Standards for Educational Advancement and Accreditation Trust, our idea was basically to say that advance education by using standards, and these standards will come from accreditation. This is the idea with which we started in 2008. And before that, I had experience of having done the ranking. In fact, I pioneered the ranking, media ranking in this country in Business India. I happened to visit more than 1,500 campuses around the country and interact with nearly 500,000 students and nearly 100,000 faculty. Now, that's the experience with which I had to really seriously think that we need to really start an organization like CR Trust. The reason is very simple, is that there is continuously the academic world of this country has really not understood what the challenges are in front of them. This is my personal feeling. It's about attitudes. At the end of the day, it's all about attitudes. And for me, the academics or the investors or the edupreneurs, I would call, they've all invested really very heavily in terms of money, in terms of time. And there is also a structure which is available elsewhere in the sense in terms of policy. We have AICTE that has been around from 1987 onwards. And we do have even the accreditation systems like NBA and NAC has been around for a long, long time. My point is very simple, is that all of these policy as well as the kind of investment that we are making has not really impacted in the level of quality that is desirable and which is benchmarked with the best in the world. This is the idea with which we said, okay, how do we get these benchmarks in individual effort or a collective effort? And one of the best ways we thought would be it's possible to raise the quality bar here is to bring international accreditation agencies to Indian shores in that sense of the term. What the idea is very simple, is that we are not promoting international accreditation in that sense of the term. What we really thought was international benchmarks of quality in faculty or in terms of the kind of student engagement or the curriculum or the research or the journals and so on. I was the editor of Indian Management Journal as well. So I am very familiar with what are the challenges of the faculty research and publications really are. And in fact, I briefly also was part of the Management Accreditation Committee of National Board of Accreditation. So I'm kind of familiar on all sides in that sense of the term. And I was also very fascinated with the work of AIU, that is Association of Indian Universities. Frankly speaking, I would have expected that AIU would be our knowledge hub. And this knowledge hub issue has always been, in this country. We have been always worried that why All India Management Association or why Association of Indian Management Schools or any of the associations which are involved. Right now, it is EPSI. The Professor Chaturvedi spoke very, very eloquently and absolutely correct. Many of the points that he made was what we are all who are engaged with this kind of quality building process are concerned with. So at this point of time, yes, we are very diverse. Yes, we are at this point of time may not be attracting the kind of faculty that we need and the kind of students that would automatically come in. But all this will happen provided we have high quality, as many of the examples that are already available with you. So we started with 0 in 2008 in terms of internationally accredited schools. And then we launched a campaign called 100 by 2015 to say that at least 100 schools should be internationally accredited by 2015. But at 2015, we found that not many, probably about 30 schools were accredited, but members, they were all become members of international accreditation agencies. So we again relaunched that particular campaign to say 2010, we said that by 2010, we should be able to get 100 schools accredited. And I'm very happy to say that, yes, there are 100 schools which are accredited by 2010. And in fact, more than 200 schools have taken membership of the International Accreditation Agency at different levels they are working. Now, my point is very simple. To get the students or the faculty, the kind of faculty that we are talking about, we need a better attitude, both in terms of the kind of policy makers we have today, or the policy that is being made, including the NEP. For example, NEP, I personally think it's a very, very interesting point that they're making, which is saying that accreditation should be the benchmark by which we should be able to gauge quality, as what we have in CHIA in the US. CHIA is basically the benchmarking agency in that sense, the term of the benchmarkers. They don't really do it themselves, but they look at the international accreditation agencies or the local agencies and approve them to say that these people are capable of getting this, quality engagement done in the campuses that they'll be visiting. So, in conclusion, I mean, I don't want to go on. I can go on this line for a long time, but I just want to conclude by basically saying that we have a structural issue, and we also have an attitudinal issue. And those who solved it, those who opted for international quality benchmarks, have really, really come very, very high. You can very well see the QS rankings, and then you'll yourself be able to really figure out who won and who lost. And this is exactly what we are ourselves very excited from CR Trust, that the work that we started is really, really engaging with the academia here. And what we simply have to do is that let's not be smug to say that, yes, we are diverse enough that we don't require faculty or anything, but we are diverse enough to attract the kind of quality, provided we continue to build the quality that we have today, so that faculty will automatically get attracted for doing research papers and publish research papers and work with us. And the students obviously will be thinking in India as an option. In one of the speakers also, I mean, I think Dr. Bhava said this, saying that why don't we get all the developing countries, students should be really looking at India, because India's, first of all, education is very cheap. Globally, if you look at the costs, we are very good. And in terms of high quality, that is also available, provided we are having a good approach towards quality building. This is our approach so far. And this is what, for me personally, we are also members of the UN Global Compact, PRME. And there, once again, we are
I have to conclude you there, Mr. Raman, because you're over time.
You're done. So, I'm done. So I just have to say,
thank you so very much. You made some points which I think support against the motion where we are not ready for internationalization at this time. The infrastructure I would say I would go beyond the quality infrastructure. Perhaps they're not ready for it. So, that probably gives a lead to the against the motion. So I would like to go to Mr. R.I.S.E, the Director EY, to make your against the motion statement on India is diverse enough to not require international faculty and students.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwin, for the opportunity. And I would like to thank Chitkara University for the invitation, and would like to thank all the panelists also for sharing their insights and views. I'm a strong supporter of diversity, be it workplace or the classroom, society, or a social circle. And when we talk about higher education, I think one of the most important function or the purpose of higher education is to prepare students for workplace. And I would like to pick, the workplace and share the business perspective first, and then some of my thoughts against the motion. Last 11 years of my careers, I have invested in global organization. I've worked with KPMG for good 5 years, and then, last 6 years, I'm working with EY. And in these organizations, I have experienced the importance of diversity. And believe me, the case is same with any other global organization also. If you ask anyone here, if he or she would be willing to go to, countries like Australia, Singapore, US, for say 3 to 6 months or for a period of 2 years for secondment, it's very likely there is going to be a loud yes. There's immense competition within these firms, including the other global firms, to go on secondment. The question is why? Why there's so much of competition? I think the core idea behind the same is to experience the culture and the ethnicity, the language, the education, the work culture, the professional belief, the working style. And these experiences actually help us to learn, to respect different point of views, different working styles, different preferences and beliefs. And one of the key criteria, for the candidates who are selected for secondment is their global perspective, their ability to adapt to global culture. So I believe that once you go on secondment, you learn things which makes you a better professional, and you are equipped with knowledge and ability to appreciate how the client operates in a different geography and the way how to deal with your clients. For a moment, you imagine a classroom, wherein you have different, students from different parts of the country, be it Delhi, Bengal, Manipur. They would be able to bring in different experiences in the classroom. But now, you add new students into the same batch who are from Poland, US, Lebanon, Canada. Wouldn't that experience be wow for the students? So I believe that we can never be diversified enough. And thus, while we are an extremely diverse country, we must always look at diversifying more and embrace the learning from across the world. While the foreign faculty brings in different perspectives, experiences, teaching methodology, I believe that foreign students bring in different opinions, degrees, social experiences, different political belief. And especially in this era wherein technology has enabled us to ignore the geographical boundaries, it is inevitable for the student fraternity to embrace diversity, learn to appreciate the different point of view, which can help them to become a better individual, a better researcher, a better businessman, or an employee in the future. And I believe, above all, a better human being. We are definitely fortunate that India is a diverse country and we have a strong faculty pool. But at the same time, we have a large population to educate also. Our higher education infrastructure should be agile enough to reap the benefits from our diversity and faculty pool without depriving our students from the much required opportunity to experience and appreciate the global perspective, which I believe is, extremely important, the most important thing in the current scenario, and you can get it only through bringing foreign faculties and peers. So in my discussion today, I have consciously decided not to quote the available historical data around lack of opportunities or pay scale or research opportunities, because we all know that there is some problem, and I'm sure that these problems can be managed through well-defined midterm higher education policy. But this policy should give due importance to the fact that our students and faculties do need global exposure, and which we can achieve by bringing more foreign faculties and students into our higher education system. I was listening to the other panel going on. I heard Professor Rajiv Ahuja, IIT, sharing that the level of funding has really improved. I have heard Dr. Apala Majumdar saying that, the institutes in UK, and Mrs. Ravneet Pava saying that the institutes in Australia are highly motivated and they appreciate the quality of people we have here. So I see all this as an opportunity, and I believe that foreign faculties and students should come into our higher education system. And we have an excellent example that how, ISB Hyderabad was set up in 2001, and then, they established themselves as a world-class institution by bringing in foreign faculties and giving emphasis to the fact that they can contribute in the overall development. Now, I am happy that the government of India also recognizes the need, and we have seen policies being framed up and implemented. For example, Study in India initiative is one of them. Let's hope to see the Indian higher education system diverse enough to meet the global standards in the time to come. And I believe that foreign faculties and foreign students can surely contribute significantly in that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. R.I.S.E. Some great points by all the four panelists. And I think I've picked up so many discussion points for us today. And I would like to throw back a question for anyone on the panel who would like to take this on India's readiness with infrastructure for international faculty. Now, it could be a true blue international faculty who's not of Indian origin, but also those who have tasted the life abroad and are living abroad and there's a difference between having to get somebody to India and having them to adjust to the infrastructure. So is that possible in India? Do you think we can provide faculty or even international students with the same kind of a lifestyle and the kind of infrastructure for a social life in India? Dr. Bawa has raised his hand. I would like to go over to him. You're muted, Dr.
Thank
Bawa.
you very much. Thank you very much. In fact, this is $1 million question. You see, first of all, I do treat, I want to correct my colleagues, those who took that. I am not including the people of Indian origin who are working outside. I consider them foreigners. I have no issue with that. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, they are more difficult to bring back rather than foreign faculty. Their terms are even tougher. And I can give you an example. I have been on the court and this Council of R.I.S.E. Bangalore. The big issue is how you bring in this foreign faculty. They put so many conditions, this kind of lab, this kind of equipment, this kind of salary. You can't bring even one. This is a big challenge. My take is that at what cost you bring the foreign faculty. As far as the foreign students are concerned, let me clarify, I'm not against that. Any kind of student diversity, in fact, this question is wrong. Student diversity and faculty diversity are altogether different ball games. Bringing in students, we welcome. I have students from 45 countries. I have more than 1,500 students on my campus, and we want to make it 5,000 in the next 4 years. I promise we'll make it more than 5,000 in next 4 years. Bringing in students, welcome. Why not? Bring in as much diversity in terms of students, but they will come only if you have quality. I agree with my co-speakers. Bringing in faculty, at what cost is my question. It's not a question of India ready. Ready for what? I want to question all my friends. Are we having sufficient infrastructure for our own researchers? Why in the first place our students are going abroad? You are saying QS. What ranking you are talking about? Bringing in, I will bring in faculty from Bangladesh and I can apply for QS ranking. Now, is this what we are looking for? You see, this ranking game is a altogether different game, and people do that, and they will do. People will play that game, because it suits us. Bringing in students, yes, we will do that also. Now, the problem has been in the past that the Indian policy of bringing in students and creating diversity and that kind of thing was not very clear. Even today, how many universities are allowed by the UGC to have foreign faculty? Only those who are A accredited. And my friends, those of you who might be knowing, in India, in all, there are 135 universities, including government and private, who are A or higher accredited. And if you talk about A+, there are only 35 universities. Out of 1,079, there are only 35 universities which are A+ or A++ accredited. Now, these are the kind of universities which are allowed to have 20% faculty. But otherwise, I am not saying that you should not have faculty. I am saying every year, more than 200 foreign faculty teaches my students from about 1 week to 6 weeks. Even for a semester, they do come. And those kind of things are possible. But making faculty mandatory for universities, no university will be able to afford. So what will you do? Let's face the ground reality. What will you do? You will bring in faculty which is not quality. And in the process, you will spoil further. Just to meet the QS or other kind of ranking, their requirements that I should have, say, 300 faculty, 200 faculty, they will start bringing in faculty from developing countries or whichever you possible. You see, I mean, if you want to compare with, say, Harvard or others, like my friend said, that people will buy and they will die for working in Harvard. Anybody who's given a chance, okay, you come and work for 5 days, people will do anything to do that. But how many people can really join such universities? And can you tell me how many universities in India can invite or have faculty which are trained in Harvard or in Stanford or in Oxford or even in top universities of the world? We can't afford. We can't afford both in terms, because India's biggest problem is technology. Whether we like it or not, I would not like to make any comment on the government policy or anything, because that's not our purview. What I'm saying is that we are lacking is, which university? You tell me one thing. I have gone to private universities also in US, in Australia also. The government funding for research is huge. And the kind of infrastructure they have got, we can't even think of. Even in a single university, the kind of infrastructure that they have got. You show me any university. We're talking about IITs. Sir, IITs, single faculty engineering institutions. They are undergraduate institutions. How many IITs have produced world-class research and innovation? They have produced engineers which will go to NASA, which will go for higher studies outside, and they will serve that country. They serve that country because they are trained enough, but then they don't find that kind of research facilities, that kind of technology here. And mind you, those who have gone there outside, sir, my friend was saying that getting students from NRI, which NRI will come to you? They will not come because for a single reason. Let's talk about Canada. Let's talk about Australia. You want to serve in Australia, you need to have an Australian degree. You want to serve in Canada, you have to have an Australian degree. For 2 years, you have to study there. My students are running there. Mind you, not because they're not getting good education here. I'm sorry to say that. They have better education here. They are going to third-rate colleges. Some of them are going to third-rate universities. Just because they'll get a degree.
Stop that, Dr. Bawa, because I think
they will get PR. They will get PR. So let us not mix issues. Let us be very clear. Let's talk about the ground realities. And I will clarify as my last statement. Number one, I am not against diversification. Particularly, I wish that we should have as many foreign students as we have Indian students on my campus. And let me tell you, on my campus, I have more than 76% students from other states and countries. Only 24% students from my region. And I'm very proud of this. But secondly, can we bear the cost of having foreign faculty? Nowadays, you don't need to bring in foreign faculty to your campus because you have technology. But getting the benefit of foreign faculty, I'm not against that. But making it mandatory at the cost of your faculty and your development, I'm sorry, I'm against it. Thank you so much.
Valid point, Dr. Bawa, and I think you have mentioned maybe the question itself needs to be rephrased and we need to remove "and" students, because we definitely want international students. So for the sake of this academic discussion, we will probably ignore the part of students, but I think the fact is we all believe international students are required. It's about the faculty now, and I think you made a point on the infrastructure and the kind of environment. So I would like to go to Dr. Singh first. And do you think, have you seen that? And as Dr. Baba mentioned, it's more difficult for NRIs or Indian origin faculty members to come back and adjust in India. So what did you say on that?
Well, I think it's fantastic hearing Dr. Baba, because he's got first-hand experience in working in the academic situation or the circumstances around being able to employ or make their own opportunities attractive enough for the faculties to arrive and live in India. But I have worked a little bit with Indian School of Business and also with a couple of other private institutions or universities in India, which have attracted Indians, NRIs, or I shouldn't use the word NRIs, they are foreigners of Indian origin who are working and contributing in a few Indian universities. And I wouldn't like to generalize and say that it's always very difficult to attract them, because all the circumstances are different. There are individuals who are doing research in topics that would possibly get furthered if they work a little bit in India or working along with another faculty of an Indian in an Indian institution. There are also I've just recently come across SP Jain Mumbai has just hired a director who has worked and lived overseas. So there are members around the world who are opting to work in India for a period of time, and sometimes even for family reasons. It may not be as attractive as what we are looking at, but there are individuals who want to spend a period of time in India for whatever reason it may be, and they may be or at whatever age. So I don't want to generalize on it. And of course, Dr. Baba talked about NRIs sending the children. Of course, NRIs from US or UK or India or Australia may not be interested in sending the children to study in, say, an institution in India, unless it is in an area like medicine or something, and they want to become a doctor and practice in India or something like that. But there are NRIs in the Gulf countries who are not able to educate the kid locally and who may be interested in having their children come over and study in India. Of course, I don't want to really quibble on it, because all that is, we have decided to leave the international student part out of the context of this discussion. But certainly regarding faculties, I just want to add one more little point here, is that it's not always the infrastructure. Infrastructure is certainly a factor when you're looking at engineering and technology areas or healthcare. But if you are looking at various humanity-linked programs or studies of business, then I think our universities do have decent capability for the foreign faculties to be able to conduct their studies or their research and also work and teach at the institutions. So that was my point here on that small subset of the argument.
Okay, so a great response. Now, what I would like to do is, as we're concluding this, and there are points.
I will not say anything after that. 1 minute only.
Yeah, I'll come back to you just a second. I just want to request our audience now. You have an opportunity to change your mind, and we will run the poll once again. The poll links are in your in the chat boxes or in the platform. What do you think? You've heard all the 4 panelists. And we'll go back to Mr. Raman and Mr. Varsi as well to make concluding remarks. Have you changed your mind? Do you think, if you were for, are you against now? Or if you're against, are you for? So let us know, and we'll show those results after we conclude it. So Dr. Baba, you wanted to say something?
Just quickly? 1 minute. 1 minute.
Just 1 minute.
With all apology, how many ISBs are there? How much fee ISB is charging? How many institutions students can afford to join? I think that I have given my argument.
Okay. Now, what Mrs. Singh has mentioned, I would like Mr. Raman to respond. And I think for you, your debate was on the quality of Indian institutions, that besides the infrastructure, we don't even have the quality which will perhaps attract international faculty. So would you like to have any concluding remarks to sway the votes to your side that, we don't require international faculty at this time? You're muted again, Mr. Raman.
Yeah. At this point of time, I personally really think I would go with Dr. Bawa when he says that we just can't afford the kind of quality faculty, and attracting the faculty of a different quality is only going to hurt us more. This is not the approach. I would personally favor that at this point of time, we don't require that kind of faculty that we are talking about, the benchmark faculty we are talking about. Let's raise our quality. That's my point. My point is basically that let's go for international accreditation or go for international collaborations like these two universities have done. It's phenomenal work they've done. I mean, it's getting a collaboration of this kind is not so easy. And when we are talking about 200 and 300, it's amazing. And one last point on this, that the digital transformation of education is really begun, big time. I think we should coordinate among the associations as well as the government and the universities to push this digital transformation of education big time, so that automatically the faculty or the student would connect with us. That's my point.
Thank you, Mr. Raman, for that. And I would like to go to Mr. R.I.S.E. for his concluding remarks on, you've heard everything, and this is your opportunity to make your statement. And you did mention about international experience and Indians wanting that experience to go out, and they want to go out and learn about it. So what do you have to say to sway the votes? And it was a 50-50 earlier. We will see whether you are able or we are able to sway it either way.
Yeah, Dr. Ashwin. See, there's definitely a problem in the infrastructure, and it requires, initiative by the government also. But, my point is that every time we cannot go to the world saying that, these are the schemes under which you need to invest in India, or you can invest in India, or if we can promote tourism saying Atiti Devo Bhava, why can't, the similar kind of initiative can be taken by the colleges, universities, and, the government together. So let's agree on the point that there are infrastructural or the funding issues, but it is ultimately we who has to actually manage it at the end. So secondly, the point which Dr. Raman highlighted, I think with all this technology, we have the flexibility to loop in faculties sitting in different parts of the world. But is that the need? That's the only need. The answer is no. Yes, they can come and interact with the students, but I think their role is required on a much larger scale. They need to come in, and contribute in the overall research which is being done at the college level, the way we operate in India. I think that those are the areas which definitely needs their contribution. And there's no doubt we have an excellent faculty pool in the country, and we are we are proud of that. But I think still there's a lot of scope, and wherein we can provide opportunity both to the Indian faculties and students to interact with the foreign faculties and students. Finally, I'll conclude simply by saying, see, we are a large country and we are proud of that. But rest of the world is larger than us and can still add to our diversity. And we as a country still have the appetite and need to learn from rest of the world in the, in the higher education area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. R.I.S.E. So 4 great discussions here and points noted. And I think there is, I would like to say this is an academic discussion. Some of the views might not necessarily be your own, but I'm happy that you agreed to do this for the sake of this academic collaboration here today. So thank you so much, Dr. Bava, Mr. Raman, Mr. Singh, and Mr. R.I.S.E. I would like to share the polls, and we are seeing a sway. We are seeing that the percentage of disagree has actually increased. We are seeing some more. So if you still have, if you still would like to cast your poll, please use the menti.com link, which is in the chat box. We do have lesser number of votes this time compared to when we started. So I can't really say that it's completely swayed, but yes, a 59% say disagree that India is diverse enough to not require international faculty, and 42% agree. So we have seen a slight sway, but I'm not completely convinced it's due to the discussion, but perhaps lesser number of people voting. But again, it's a great discussion. I think the purpose is not just to sway the results, but to have a healthy academic discussion. So thank you so much, my dear panelists, for putting together, and being part of this. To any of the comments, thank you so very much. Have a great afternoon, and we look forward to perhaps having you all back again on another discussion to take this forward and seeing what is that we can do for India, and how can we promote excellence, which actually Mr. Raman mentioned with accreditation and so on. And I'm happy that QS IGAUGE is part of this journey in India with institutions, students, faculty, and the industry. So over to you, Aishwarya, for the next part.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ashwin, for conducting such an engaging debate session. I also thank all the debate speakers for sharing their valuable insights with us. Now it is time to take a pause from this wonderful series of sessions for a quick lunch break. The break is till 2 p.m. This time, the delegates and speakers can also use to network on the virtual platform. We'll see you all soon after this short break. Thank you.